Recording. Hello folks, hope you're well. This is primarily a response to questions I got on the other video, the Momma Aya video, which I'll put a link in, or link to this video, or whatever, something. This is primarily to respond to questions Ian asked me, because I couldn't fit it into a comment box. There's no way I could fit it into a comment box, not with the way I verbally express. Yes, anyway, so this is primarily a response to that. As I said in that video, there's loads I could say about what's happening at the moment out there in the big wide world, the situation in Syria, etc. Suez Canal, can we say? There's a video that I uploaded on my channel ages ago called Robert Newman's History of Oil. If you haven't seen it, please watch it. It'll give you a good encapsulated context of that area, the Suez Canal, the conflict over oil, the balkanisation effect of causing infighting between different groups, tribal groups, etc. But yes, anyway, balkanisation into new world city-states. Yeah, anyway, to answer questions. Yeah, otherwise I'll end up just diverging into all over the place. Sorry, but I'll get on with it. I'll read out the question, or the comment anyway, because it includes a couple of questions. You make a great case considering the whole therapeutic nature of the ayahuasca ceremony, but I was wondering, do you see, experience, feel other entities while taking ayahuasca, and how would you explain them? As with DMT machine elves that people have reported, etc. I've finished reading the comments. The other question was also, some people with epilepsy have reported while in seizure to feel like they're in another dimension, sometimes including entities. I think this might fit in. Yeah, I agree on that. That's probably the quickest and easiest one for me to answer to or respond to. Again, please, I'm no expert in this. I'm just looking to find out for myself, and I'm sharing what I'm finding out and what I'm thinking about. So, yeah, everybody join in the chorus. People with epilepsy, they are, according to what the neurological science is telling us, they're experiencing an episode of that electrical storm in the brain. So their brain is firing on so many multiple levels. The activity causes them to have a fit or seizure that might result in physical outward effects. It doesn't always for everyone. Some people can have, totally static seizures. But yes, that's exactly the same kind of thought. So when people are suffering an epilepsy fit, they're having that brainstorm seizure effect. And in that sense, are they also experiencing that removal of the gateways? So I think in an epileptic sense, it's probably the equivalent of a battering ram going through those gateways, rather than the ayahuasca effect is the softening of the flow of the GABA, and therefore opening up in a more lubricated fashion those gateways, whereas a seizure is most definitely an aggressive way of doing it. Makes me wonder as well whether people who have electroshock therapy may experience, even though it might only last a fraction of a second or a few seconds, do they experience a similar seizure or epileptic effect? Yes, anyway, that's another side note. To the entities thing, because that really is the main question. That was a part of, in the previous video, that was part of what I was trying to avoid in one way. In that video, I was mainly interested in concentrating on if there are these known and provable chemical effects, then is that what is acting as the method of communication? It creates the gateway, creates a doorway. And I know a lot of people have talked about it before and argued that the use of such psychotropic substances, and also things such as meditation and yoga, is opening a gateway to evil forces, satanic forces, jinn, archons, whatever, other entities that may have unpleasant agendas or attitudes or desires, etc., etc. There's been some interesting stuff put out about all the Illuminati type stuff a lot recently, the MK Ultra programming, etc., etc., the use of symbolism, use of language, pre-programming. As per usual for me, this topic branches into so many other areas that we could bring in, but let's concentrate on trying to answer this one question. I did make a few notes because I knew I would end up wandering off, as I usually do. Things that have occurred to me in trying to come up with some answers for your question. And these are things that I've thought about before, considered, pondered on. But it helps when responding to a direct question. It helps to codify things into a theory or hypothesis, etc., etc. So one of the things that was making me ponder, consider, this verges into stuff to do with morphogenic fields. I'll put a link to Rupert Sheldrake's website. If you don't know about that kind of stuff, interesting stuff, go and have a look into it. That also links into things such as the 100th monkey effect, etc. For me, in a bardic sense, from my point of view, my perspective, the way I interact with things, it comes in from that vibratory sense. But anyway, yes, when I was talking about the removal of those barriers that allow the hierarchical construct of the conscious mind and the way it interacts with the memory storage that you have, it has to have it in a constructed linear kind of fashion. The psychotropics help remove that or ease it or level it. In that respect, again, neurologically, scientifically, empirically provable that the brain, the mind, absorbs a lot more data, a lot more raw information about your surroundings, your environment and your emotions and experiences than your conscious mind is aware of, let alone needs to be aware of. Your conscious mind is the pinnacle. It's the zenith of the entirety of your mind. It's that monologue thread of focused interaction with the everything else. So therefore it doesn't necessarily need all the information. It wants the information that's relevant to what it's doing at the time. Like me talking now, I want the use of language to come to me, etc., etc. So in that respect, is there a lot of a hell of a lot of information coming into yourself, into your mind, into your perception, that may or may not be stored away for long-term reference. Again, because of the way the conscious mind works in that focus hierarchy sense, it might be there and we're just not aware of it. Again, I'd reference into things such as the dream state experiences, dreaming, lucid dreaming, astral projection, remote viewing, and loads of stuff. But is there a lot, I personally feel that there is, and there's enough scientific evidence to back up the logical reasoning side of the argument or suggestion, hypothesis. There is a hell of a lot more information that comes into our minds than we actually are consciously aware of or consciously access or use. We don't know, as far as I know anyway, from looking at what information is available to us, we cannot know for definite one way or the other how much of that information is stored away and from what point in your biological development does it start that storing process. As I talked about in the previous video, there's more evidence now to show that infant babies actually do store away memories that can then later be accessed, whether consciously or subconsciously. So is that memory storage even filing away every tiny minutiae of the interaction you have with the everything else and each other? Even down to, it made me consider things such as what I know other people have talked about it before in one way or another, that's why I reference Sheldrake. But does it even go down to the level of what you could describe as molecular memories? Does your brain store away the sensation of the molecules of your skin as their EM fields interact? Because remember, there is no actual physical reality, it's the resistance of one field against another within the energetic spin that is the energy EM field that creates the illusion of a molecule. Is your brain storing away even the very minutiae of that information? Your conscious mind doesn't need to be aware of it, because your conscious mind is focusing on other stuff, such as forming vocal noises into words. Yeah, I think you get the point. Could we then say that that sense of the everything that I was trying to describe in the previous video, that connectedness sense, is again giving you access to those parts of your brain where it may be what I would call the echo of the cacophony of the vibration of everything else that you're experiencing around you. If your subconscious mind is absorbing immense amounts of data, immense amounts of information about the environment it's in, even down to that sensation, no matter how infinitesimal, of the vibrations of each little molecule, of the bodies out in space, the giant masses of gravity and weight that are moving around out there. That, like ripples in a pond of many individual pebbles thrown into the pond, you get that interaction of the ripples, the crossing over of those amplitudes and the eventual merging of them into I was going to say harmony, but as we know, general life is not always in harmony. But in that respect, trying to describe it in that sonic sense of being aware of those vibratory fields. Again, that's why I referenced Sheldrake and the idea of the morphogenic fields. So, to get to the point of directly addressing the aware of other entities, in my own personal experience, I don't feel I encountered anything other than what I would describe as Momma Aya. What I sensed was very, very fitting to all the various descriptions and anecdotal sort of accounts of what people have described as Momma Aya. Yes, I'm aware of the possibilities of being predisposed to put it in that cloak because of having prior reading of those kind of accounts. So I pre-programmed myself into seeing it as Momma Aya, possibly. That's why I was considering and contemplating is the form of Momma Aya purely an interpretive filter that it uses to interact with you. Think of, if you've ever seen the film Contact, the point where, I can't remember the actress's name, but the point where she actually encounters the alien being, and the alien being uses form that she would recognise and would be able to interact with. It's that kind of concept which Carl Sagan, another interesting guy to look into and research if you haven't, put forward that kind of idea. And he wasn't the only one. There's lots of other versions of that kind of concept. That leads me into what I would describe as the part that would be existentialist, and I'll put a link into the Wikipedia page on existentialism. I'm pretty sure Arjan's aware of this kind of stuff, but for those who are listening in who maybe not, haven't looked at it before, you might find all that interesting. It is a bit long-winded, academic, dusty, slow reading, takes quite a bit to contemplate and cogitate and think about, but it's there if you want to go and investigate. In that existentialist fashion, for me, what I experienced, I would describe as it's that sense of the other. It's not me, so therefore it has to be another sentience of whatever kind, where it's coming from, what it is, how it exists. That never comes into the question. Very much I felt, certainly in that kind of Momma Aya ayahuasca experience type effect, this thing meant me no harm in any way whatsoever. If anything, it wanted me to, from my own personal experience, it wanted me to feel comfortable in the realm where it was introducing me. It was almost like I'd walked into somebody's house and they'd said the usual kind of things like, "Mea casa," you know, "welcome, come in, sit down, make yourself comfortable." It was like that. How to I can't see that there is at the moment any way to scientifically, empirically prove the existence of these potentially other entities. I know there is science and research that has looked into stuff like that. Kirlian photography and things gives us a glimpse possibly on the existence of those kind of EM fields, morphogenic fields, on and on and on the links go. But proving it with a bit of, I was going to say certainty, but you say this is part of the problem of when you get into the scientific facts. Just how much evidence do you have to pile on before it becomes an acceptable fact? So proving it in that way, explaining it, the only way I can explain it is that the universe is infinite. To all our knowledge, it is infinite in both directions, in the macro and the micro. So in that respect, there are, I can't remember the proper Shakespeare quote, but there are more things under heaven and earth, Horatio. You know, there could be anything and everything out there. And there are so many accounts stretching back through different cultures, throughout recorded history, academically accepted history, and alternative history that is out there, that references, talks about, suggests that there are other entities out there other than ourselves. Could these entities be extraterrestrial or pan-dimensional or energetic? All I can relate is, in my own personal experience, there was something there that was not me. And that's the only way I can explain it. As I said in the previous video, I never try to push this kind of pharmacopoeia approach on anybody else. I feel they are very useful tools. You have to treat them with great respect. It's not something that you just stuff in your face and forget about it. In that fact, no. These are often can be quite extreme experiences that take a while to consider and think about and deal with. It's not something that you should take on lightly in that respect, and they are not the answer. They are merely tools to help you along your path and stepping stones along the way that you can utilise. So in that respect, all I can really say to answer that question is, in my experience, it was the same as sitting in a room with somebody else there. I knew they were there, I knew they were somebody else. It didn't require confirmation by going up and touching them or something like you might do in a real life sense. No, it was just there. But as I say, I never experienced any other entities apart from the one that to me was Momma Aya. There was me and there was her. I was aware of other people in proximity because there were other people there taking part in the ceremony. There was the shaman there. I was aware that there were other people in the room with me, but this was something other than that. I was aware even of the plants outside. There was a tree that was within my view outside the window, and it was doing a fantastic dance for me for ages. But anyway, that to me, in that sense of a sense of an other or outside entity beyond my own sentience, the sense of life was, as I tried to describe before, it was all encompassing and it was connected. It wasn't as if the tree was out there somewhere and was separate to me. It was as if, like the mushroom is the bud of the mycelium mycelium network that runs under the ground, that is the actual part of the entire plant. You know, the mushroom is the bud that surfaces up above the ground. To me, that tree was like part of my own mycelium network into everything else. It was a emanation of what it is to be a tree. And from that point, you know, we could get into all the stuff to do with platonic forms and metaphysical forms and stuff like that, which is, you know, where it gets very navel gazing and amorphous, and, you know, back into that area of what can you prove? Nothing. Oh, well, it was interesting, but there you go. Yes, that's all I can say really to answer that. I don't want to make this video too long. Probably already waffled enough as it is. I'll leave it naturally as it is. I won't edit it. Yes, that's the only way I can explain it really. That knowing sense that this is not me, this is somebody or something else. It did not, to me, feel malevolent in any way. It didn't even seem to want to interfere too much with what I was doing. I was very much sort of left just to explore. As to other types of pharmaceuticals, pharmacopoeia, other drugs, other psychoactives and stuff like that, and how they would give that kind of window or doorway or gateway. I can only look at other people's accounts. For example, I haven't done what is it, Iboga, things like that. So I don't know in that respect. As I said earlier, there's a lot of cultural, anecdotal information, historical information about describing, interacting with these entities. That just reminded me of one other person I was going to mention, and in a similar fashion referencing that encountering other entities thing, Dr. John Dee, a very interesting figure in history. Go and look into it, go and read about him. But the reason I mention it is he's often attributed as being one of the greatest alchemists and scientists, because this was at a point in time when these two genres or styles of science were very much intermingled and merged. And a lot of what he did and a lot of what he recounted was to do with interacting with other entities. He did it through scrying, through classic mysticism, the use of fetishes and tools to create a bridge, a medium to communicate, in the same way as suggested by most shamanic cultures, the use of these chemical agents, or the use of austerities such as a sweat lodge or fasting, etc., etc. The use of these things help form the bridge that allows the communication. But as most of these ancient accounts and cultures, and Dee himself recounted, you have to be aware that these other entities are not necessarily benevolent or benign. They cannot be malevolent, just the same as human beings can be. So yes, anyway, hopefully I did answer the question. Do you see experience other entities while taking ayahuasca? How would you explain them? Yeah, I think I've said enough. Thank you for listening. If you have listened, me flicking ash everywhere. Take care, folks. Keep an eye on what's going on, both above and below. As above, so below. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Yes. Hopefully I'll rant at you again soon enough. Take care, folks.